Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. We're at episode number 1728 today. Thank you so much for joining me for it. Thank you for subscribing wherever you like to catch the show, and thank you for the ratings and reviews in those places as well. And especially thank you to everybody supporting the podcast at patreon.com/SW7x7. So today we're continuing with our series of looks at Star Wars Celebration Chicago. And today we're moving on to Sunday's events. I don't really have a top 5 this time. It's actually a top 3, as it turns out. But there is one particular series of events that I want to call to your attention as well. So we'll get to that eventually. But first, the main newsworthy events of Sunday at Star Wars Celebration. So, of course, Friday was episode 9. Saturday was Galaxy's Edge. And the big event that is going to be the panel lottery event for Sunday is the panel about The Mandalorian. Now, here's the funny thing about this one. They've only announced 2 people for the panel, and they haven't added that and special guests announcement situation. Here's the actual official description. It says, learn about the perilous world of The Mandalorian, set to debut on Disney Plus, with executive producer and writer Jon Favreau and executive producer and director Dave Filoni in a special panel discussion. So I gotta say, somebody's gotta show up from this show, right? I mean, it's the other big premiere that's happening in 2019. And in fact, probably not long before the premiere of episode 9. So there's been absolutely no one associated with the show who has been announced as a guest for Star Wars Celebration Chicago, which is kind of surprising, I must admit. And principal photography is over with The Mandalorian. So, you know, hopefully there would even be something resembling a trailer, something resembling a preview. I imagine we'll get to see photos from the set because, you know, that's kind of an easy no-brainer one. But as far as video footage, well, you would hope that they would pull something like that out of their back pockets. And I think, you know, that's what everybody who attends this thing is going to be counting on. But at this moment, yeah, precious little information about the Mandalorian panel at Celebration. And that is, of course, in contrast to the other panel on which Dave Filoni is involved on Sunday, and also the other big newsworthy panel of the day, and that's going to be the Clone Wars Season 7 sneak peek panel. Here's the information about that. It says, Dave Filoni and special guests celebrate the return of Star Wars The Clone Wars and share a sneak peek at what's to come. Now, this one is also going to be streamed from Celebration to just the Twin Sun stage, not to the Galaxy stage as well, but, you know, hey, that's okay. And there's the special guests tag, and we already know that Matt Lanter, who plays Anakin Skywalker, and James Arnold Taylor, who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ashley Eckstein, who plays Ahsoka Tano, Tom Kane, who plays Yoda, D. Bradley Baker, who plays a bunch of clones in the Clone Wars, and I think there are probably a few others that we haven't touched on yet, but, you know, major names are, Catherine Tabor also, who plays Padme Amidala in the Clone Wars. All 6 of them are going to be at Celebration Chicago, so you would think that that lines up pretty well with special guests to appear on the show. Daniel Logan's actually also going to be there too, and he did the voice of young Boba Fett for the Clone Wars. So yeah, I guess if I sit here long enough, I'm going to think of more people. So I'll just, you know, like hang there and say that that's what a special guest thing looks like when you've got just that one little tidbit there in the panel description, but you know that a whole bunch of these other people are showing up to Celebration in general. Yeah, so I don't know. We've got 2 weeks until Celebration actually happens. Yeah, it's 2 weeks from today that it kicks off with the Bounty Hunter preview. And still, you know, there haven't been some big names mentioned as guests. For example, you know, the top 3 of Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac, like, they're not announced yet, and Mark Hamill isn't technically announced either. So yeah, something kooky's going on about that. In fact, even Anthony Daniels, he put out, you know, one of his cryptic tweets that he'd been tweeting, and somebody on Reddit unscrambled it to say something to the effect of, I'm delighted to announce I'm attending Celebration Chicago, but he hasn't been officially announced on the website or by the Celebration team yet. So yeah, there are still some major announcements to come. And the last one that I would recommend in my top 3 for Sunday is the Into the Archives panel. And the deal with that is that toward the end of the year last year, there was this ginormous book called Star Wars Archives, episodes 4 through 6 by Paul Duncan. And it's by Taschen, the publisher that makes these incredible coffee table books. And he got to go to the Lucasfilm Archives, and apparently this panel is going to talk about ideas that didn't make it into the book. And also, as Paul Duncan says for the panel description, he said, I can't bring you into the archives, so I want to bring the archives to you. And so he is going to reveal some behind-the-scenes work behind the scenes. How many times can I say behind the scenes? He's going to reveal some behind-the-scenes stuff for how the book came into being and some of the amazing things that he discovered in the Lucasfilm Archives, including things that did not make it into the book. And I guess similar to that, there is an ILM panel that looks back at the very beginnings of ILM too, and so that would be kind of on a par with this sort of thing, except I think the Paul Duncan retrospective and the Into the Archives thing is probably a lot wider in its scope. It does touch on ILM stuff as well, but the ILM 75 panel should be pretty interesting as well. And that's it as far as like the major panels of Sunday, but there is one stage at Celebration Chicago that I haven't talked about yet at all. And the programming for the stage is actually pretty cool when you dig into it. And so I'll tell you what panel or what stage that is in just a second. But first, I do just want to remind you to please subscribe to the show. Please consider supporting me in delivering this daily dose of joy to you at patreon.com/SW7X7. 1,728 episodes. It might be worth a cup of coffee. I'm just saying. So it's the Star Wars University stage. That's the one that I'm thinking of in particular. And the range of stuff that's happening on the Star Wars University stage is all over the board. I mean, there's maker stuff, there's cosplay stuff, there's all sorts of different things. And there's also a lot of very interesting novel and audiobook stuff. One of them is for the military of Star Wars, and Jason Fry, who is a Star Wars novelist and also nonfiction writer, is going to be a part of that panel. So if you're a fan fiction writer who wants to go pro, there's a panel for you, and it's actually run by Claudia Gray of Lost Stars and Bloodline and Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and the upcoming Master and Apprentice. So somebody who's actually done it, right? There's also going to be a behind the scenes in the audiobook recording studio panel with Nick Martorelli, who you've heard on the show here before. I've interviewed him. And Mark Thompson, who is a narrator for a number of different Star Wars novels. So that's going to be really a fascinating thing. I've already kind of, dabbled in those kinds of discussions with Nick on the show a couple of times. And so I'm hoping that I have a chance to be able to drop in on that panel as well. And let's see, what else can I tell you about? There's a world building panel, how to build your own galaxy far, far away. And that's run by Delilah Dawson of course, The Perfect Weapon and Phasma and the upcoming Galaxy's Edge Blackspire novel. And let's see, also an art and craft of video game writing panel, which includes Alexander Freed, who wrote the Battlefront Twilight Company novel and also has the upcoming Alphabet Squadron novel. He also wrote the novelization for Rogue One, a Star Wars story. There's just so many incredible things going on there. Also a panel on Star Wars Insider Magazine, if you're a subscriber to that. And the mythology of Star Wars, which features Dan Z from Coffee with Kenobi and Clayton Sandell, who reports on Star Wars and other things for ABC. So a lot of very cool things happening on the Star Wars University stage. I highly encourage you to check out what's going on there. Check out StarWarsCelebration.com to see what's going there. Go to their features section and then check the content box. And then you'll see panel schedules and you can sort by days and by stages there. And that is going to do it for today's episode of Star Wars 7x7. And thank you so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.